Hey guys, this is Nefis here, and today we're going to be talking about my Stamblade build and setups for Veteran Blackrose Prison. In my previous Veteran Blackrose Prison guide for the Magplar build, I went over some of the things that is a common theme, so check that out if you guys haven't, and thank you so much for watching this video. So I'm going to be going over the stats, the CP, the Mundus, the gear, and so on, and the skills obviously as well. So here we go. So the gear-wise, we're going to have 2-piece Velidreth, and you're going to pretty much have this on for pretty much the entire arena. Velidreth definitely outperforms Stormfist in terms of damage. If you are having a lot of sustaining issues, you can consider using Stormfist, but I wouldn't really recommend it. For your 5-piece on the body, you want Two Fanged Snake. Now, Two Fanged Snake is going to be a very important part of the build here, because in Blackrose Prison, you're not really going to have a sustainable outcast uptime from the tank or other debuffs you would expect in a raid, so you can't really go advancing Yokeda and Reloquent and stuff like that. So Two Fanged Snake is a very, very, very good set for Blackrose Prison. And I'm going to be explaining the math behind why we're going to use Two Fanged Snake with the Thief Mundus and the Sharpened traits as well. Now, on the rings and the daggers, you have two choices. You can put War Machine Jewelry and War Machine Daggers, both sharpened, on your front bar, or you can go 5-piece VO on the front bar if you have the jewelry and the daggers for it. Vicious Ophidian daggers actually drop pretty commonly in both Vet and normal Sanctum Ophidia, so it's actually a bit more easily farmable than the War Machine daggers. So you will have the jewelry trait be infused, all of them, ideally, because at the moment, as of the ESO Wrathstone patch, Infused outperforms Robust on both Magicka and Stamblade DPS setups. You don't want to go Bloodthirsty because Infused is a lot better for trash and prolonged fights. Bloodthirsty is a bit better, obviously a bit better for shorter fights. So in Blackrose Prison, ideally, this setup is going to be used for a 2 DPS, 1 healer, and 1 tank composition. You can use these setups I'm going to show you here for a 3 DPS composition. Doesn't really matter, but you will definitely want Infused on your jewelry traits. For your daggers front bar, whether it be Vicious Ophidian or War Machine, they're both going to be sharpened. And in my previous video, in one of my previous videos, I explained why we don't want to use the poisons, because they do bug out your Berserker enchant on your bow bar and degrading them to CP 150 white, since poisons are CP 150 white. It's an interesting bug. You can watch it there. Now, the reason why we want 2 sharpened is because it's going to help us stack penetration with Two Fanged. So Two Fanged, it gives you 860 penetration, stacking up to 5 times for 3 seconds as long as you're attacking something, and it's 4300 penetration total. And we're going to be losing the Lover here in favor of the Thief, because with the Lover, with the setup, it's going to be a pretty insane overpenetration. You don't want to overpen in Blackrose Prison. It may help a little bit more to have Lover and all this, possibly with 1 Nern, 1 Sharpened, but at the same time, you kind of lose out when you get to the big ads that need more focus, and the bosses and the boss fights, which can be pretty long as well. But this setup is actually pretty damn perfect in terms of numbers, in terms of penetration. So yeah, Two Fanged will give you 4300 penetration. Lover with all divines is going to give you around 4000. So we are losing 4000 penetration from not having Lover, but the 2 Sharpened will make up for it slightly with 2800 penetration around there. And assuming we have Major Fracture and Crusher on big ads like the Hachimotuz, the Wamasus, and the Gargoyles in Blackrose Prison, you're going to have definitely a bit more penetration from the tank, giving you Major Fracture and Crusher. Now, we're also going to be making up more penetration in CP, and I'll go over to CP later on. For trash, we're going to assume we're going to be missing Crusher and Fracture from the tank, because the tank's mostly going to be using range taunts and making sure everything's stacked for us. So we got the 4300 penetration from Two Fanged, the 2800 penetration roughly from the 2 Sharpened, and we have about 3.1k penetration from the CP I have put into Piercing in the blue tree. So the difference between this and having Lover is actually not that big, because with Lover it would be, you would have a total penetration value of 11,100, and with this setup you have 10,200 around there. So it's not a huge difference. You have maybe like a 900 at most penetration difference. And this actually works out pretty well in favor for us because we don't want to overpen. Overpenetration is a DPS loss for sure, so you don't want to overpen. Stats wise, you're gonna have stam recovery unbuffed without a pod around 1300. Weapon crit's gonna be actually pretty high on this setup considering you have Two Fanged and War Machine or even VO. Like, these two sets don't really give you much crit at all. Like, War Machine gives you weapon damage and max stam. Same for VO, honestly, but VO does have a couple more crit additions. But if you are a Stamblade or a Stam DPS in general who's wearing VO, you want the other person to be wearing War Machine. So basically, if you're a Stamblade, you're pretty much the default War Machine person. If you have two Stamblades in group, one Stamblade can wear VO, and the other can wear War Machine. If you have a Stam Sorker, some other Stam DPS that's not a Stamblade, for sure you must have War Machine as a Stamblade. And that is pretty much it. The Major Slayer given by the War Machine is pretty insane in there because it's always guaranteed to go onto the other DPS. VO is nice too in terms of sustain. Like, the sustain difference between VO and War Machine is incredibly noticeable. But if you want the most out of it, in terms of sustain and crit, VO's the way to go. But at the same time, you need someone in your group to wear the War Machine because it's really, really nice for the burst fights and pretty much the trash fights as well. Resistances wise, it's gonna be whatever. In your DPS, we're not really gonna be focusing on the resistances. Max stam around 32,000. Max health as an orc. I am an orc on this character. I don't know what kind of changes are going to bring in the Elsewhere patch that may adversely affect racial passives, but you have the option going Redguard, Orc, or Bosmer. But I would highly, strongly recommend Orc for the Wrathstone patch for sure. And as you can see here, even with the War Machine on, we'll have about 57% crit with the Thief. And actually, we're going to be moving on to the CP setup just to show you guys what it is. Red CP, I pretty much use the same thing I have in my Discord server, or the ones I showed you guys in my Blackrose Prison CP setup video. But just to glance over it real quick, 72 Ironclad, 20 Medium Armor Focus, 66 Dixon, 56 Hardy, 56 Ellie, and Green Tree, whatever you feel like you're missing. There's going to be sometimes instances where you have to block, where you have to dodge roll, so points there as well. Breaking Free is really nice for the stage 3 boss, the Vampire. She always drains me, so it's kind of like needed for me for sure. 20% break free cost reduction. And here, we're going to show you the blue CP, which is pretty much the most important part for the DPS setup here. We got 16 into physical weapon expert. That's a 10% bonus to your damage done with light and heavy attacks for your dual wield and your bow. That's pretty important. That 10% is nice. And we got a 66 into master at arms. Pretty standard nowadays for both mag and stamina. And you got a lot of direct damage as a Stamblade here. You got the merciless bow pro. You got the throw dagger. You got the surprise attack and so on. Now the most important part of this is this tree here. We have 40 Thaumaturge. We don't really need much more than this. We got 56 Precise Strikes and we got 56 Mining, pretty standard setups. But the most important part is the piercing. You don't want to overpen, but you also don't want to underpen. So we got 36 piercing. So that gives us 3,117 penetration. And this pretty much is what the value was before when I was talking about the penetration values. This will bring us up to 10.2k penetration, assuming there's no crusher or major fracture. Major fracture is 5,280. So if you slap on major fracture from surprise attack or pierce armor from a tank, we're already almost at the pen cap, which is 17 some K, and we're gonna have at least 15,000 penetration from just a major fracture. Assuming we have Crusher, that's already bringing us up to a max penetration of around 17,000. So this CP is definitely very perfect for our penetration in Blackrose Prison. From the combat metrics I've been viewing, it's very good. It's performing very well in Trash. But yeah, that is pretty much it for the CP, gear, and the setups, the alternate setups, and why we have the Thief Mundus, because Lover you don't need it to overpen, and at the same time you have 2 Sharpened. That's kind of overkill. You don't want the Shadow as well, because you're not getting any raid buffs. You're not really going to get consistent horns. You're not really getting any other raid buffs that you would expect elsewhere. So we gotta keep in mind that this is a 4-man arena, and we're gonna have to 4-man it basically. It's not 12-man. Lastly, I want to talk about the skills. Before I go to the skills, the ideal food to use is RTM takeaway broth. You don't have to be a vampire or anything, whatever. For the skills, it's going to be pretty straightforward. We're going to have surprise attack on the front bar, your basic major fracture debuff, plus it's a very, very, very strong spammable when you can. We have relentless focus, and this is the usual Stamblade bow proc, and it's very bursty, very good. Shrouded Daggers. Shrouded Daggers is actually pretty damn insane in Blackrose Prison. You don't need Steel Tornado. Shrouded Daggers will do the work for you, and there's a lot of trash where you may need to keep your distance as a stamina DPS for sure. Like on crocodiles or gargoyles, there's also going to be times when, let's say the bosses will be away and you can still range them down with Shroud Dagger. It is pretty insane. Basically, you keep up surprise attacks, short resistance buff for yourself, and because it comes from the shadow passive over here somewhere, let's see. Casting a shadow ability grants you major resolve and major ward. It's a pretty strong part of the Nightblade toolkit, so for 6 seconds you get major ward, major resolve. So this actually goes up. This actually makes our resistance go up, and after we cast this once, we can just spam Shroud Daggers and everything will just melt. Killer's Blade or Execute, how can we forget it? You always want to use this on very priority ads and boss fights, of course, below the moment they hit 25%, as it says in the tooltip. Resolving Vigor. Now Vigor is still going to be important even with a healer in your group. There are times where the healer might not be able to get to you or maybe isolate from you. So Vigor is definitely nice to have. An extra heal to add to the group as well. It's pretty damn nice. And we're going to have Flawless Dawnbreaker on the front bar. And boost our weapon damage by 5%. And it's a nice AoE ultimate. On the back bar, we're going to have Endless Hail, Poison Injection, Leeching Strikes, Razor Caltrops, and Rearming Trap with Incapitating Strike. So this is a matter of debate. If you're gonna double bar Incap, I don't know why you wouldn't, because after testing it, Flawless Dawnbreaker feels a lot better for my DPS numbers. But if you happen to lazily want to do that, I would strongly recommend morphing your Incap to Soul Harvest. In terms of DPS numbers, they're not too far apart, whether you're a Stamblade or not. The other morph is more Magicka based, Magicka damage. But the Soul Harvest morph actually gives you more ulti the more things die. So you can potentially double bar Soul Harvest, but I personally prefer the Flawless Dawnbreaker in the front bar. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The other alternative bar setups you can have for certain boss fights, assuming you are on PC. Obviously console players cannot do this, unfortunately, where you can immediately swap skills. For boss 1 particularly, or even some boss fights in there, I prefer this bar setup with Incap on the front bar and Ballista on the back bar. Ballista is insane. It's pretty damn insane. I would highly recommend it for using it on the first arena boss, even in the third arena boss. I don't know, I'm not quite sure. It's kind of up for debate on the Arena 2 and Arena 5, but you get the gist. But yeah, that is pretty much it. If you guys are curious about the rotation, it's pretty simple. It's a standard Stamblade rotation. Endless Hail first, Light attack, assuming you already have yourself buffed with minor resolve, or excuse me, relentless focus. Endless hail, light attack, razor caltrops, poison injection, light attack, and trap if you need it. And you always need it. And that's actually going to be the skill I'm going to be talking about for the most part towards the end of the video. And you just pretty much spam Shroud Dagger and Surprise Attack with your dots down from the back bar. One thing I forgot to mention about this skill, so Rearming Trap. So from the Fighter's Guild passives, it can be a lot of damage on the undead and werewolves. And there's a lot of undead in Blackrose Prison. We have a lot of undead on Arena 3 and Arena 5. Arena 5 is entirely all undead, as is Arena 3, and parts of Arena 4 are undead as well. So I prefer using Rearming Trap for my minor force source. It can be daunting sometimes to manage your stamina and keep up all this. So some heavy attacks are required throughout the entire arena. But Rearming Trap is definitely, I would prefer over Channel Acceleration from the Decision line. You can do Channel Acceleration. It'd probably be a much more reliable source of minor force if you don't like keeping Rearming Trap down. But if you're in an organized group where you know where the ads are going to be, you know where the tanks are going to stack them, Rearming Trap wins out in my opinion in terms of both damage and upkeep. But yeah, that is pretty much it, guys. Those are the skills, the Mundus Stone, the gear, the CP, and the stats. I hope you guys have learned a bit from the video, and I hope I see more of you go for Blackrose Prison. It is a very fun place as a DPS, not really as a tank. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching my videos, and I do have this move planned, so my move will definitely affect my YouTube upload schedule and my streaming schedule. But until then, guys, until the next video, I wish you the best of luck. I hope you guys have a great day. Stay safe and have a great adventure.